Thank you for coming. 2023 draft is over. Always love to give a shout out to all of our hardworking scouts. You know, they work all year scouring the globe for all the talent, you know, throughout this great basketball universe, you know, from Mike Schmitz to Andre Patterson, Sergio Oliva, Asia Jones, Sharice Sam, Tina Thompson, BJ Domingo, Danny Connors, Jake Fox, Swang and Lamani, Nico Matthew. You know, we have so many people that contribute to a night like this. It's a ton of work, and I just want to thank them and, you know, give them some kudos for, I think, what we feel was a very successful draft. You know, at pick 3, we got Scoot Henderson, who has a chance to be a transcendent player in this league, extremely talented. Sky's the limit. We're incredibly excited to have Scoot come to Portland. Pick 23, Chris Murray from Iowa. We're really excited to see Chris get that far to us, you know, to fall to 23. He does what we're trying to do, what we need more of: defense, IQ, ranginess, the ability to be disruptive on defense and, you know, cover all kinds of different guys and be switchable and be able to drop and rotate and protect the rim a little bit. And then offensively, very, very functional. So for us, Chris, that's somebody that we really liked coming into this draft and feel very fortunate, excuse me, that he was there. Pick 43 in the second round, another guy who we're very high on, Ryan Rupert, from France, played in New Zealand this year, had a great season, ton of potential, you know, really rangy, long, very defensive minded, terrific worker, terrific guy, very, very high ceiling. So with those 3, we feel like we got a lot accomplished, you know, in this new environment, you know, this new CBA and this new basketball rule system that we play under. Value contracts are extremely beneficial for a roster. They allow you a lot more flexibility to, you know, make the moves that you're hoping to do. So I'm sure I'll get some questions about why 3 guys, why maybe some young guys. And the answer is, in order to get high-end talent on rookie scale contracts is extremely appealing to us to be able to do our other business and keep adding to this team. So all in all, I think it was an incredible day for us, and I'm ready for some questions.
At the trade deadline, you talked about very soon going all in, maybe even overpaying to bring in a star to help Damian. How close were you, if at all, to moving this pick for such a player? And if obviously you didn't, so do you feel like you still can this summer? And lastly, how has Dame reacted, if he has reacted at all, to you guys making this pick?
The goal, you know, post-lottery was to see what the value of this pick is, you know, both as far as evaluating the draft and evaluating the trade market. So very early on, after we moved up to 3, had a ton of different meetings with, you know, myself and my staff, myself and Jody and Bert, myself and Chauncey and Dame, going through, you know, who's our targets? Who are guys that make sense for us? You know, so you go through that board, and as you're evaluating this draft and evaluating Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller, the list gets pretty small pretty quickly as far as which guys are available, plus a terrific fit on a great contract and can really take us to another level. So, you know, we kept working those and trying to see if any of those players made sense. But end of day, as we got through this, you know, into today, we just opted to go with the pick instead with Scoot because we deem him like he's just, for us, the better player. What was the second question? Dame and I talked, when we last talked? Tuesday morning. Dame's not in Portland right now. Had a long talk Tuesday morning. You know, that was 2 days before the draft, so there's still a lot of things can happen. You know, often teams don't show their hand until Wednesday or even today, or sometimes even during the draft. But we had a long talk about some trade possibilities. We had a good discussion about, hey, there's a strong likelihood that we're going to draft here at 3. We didn't know exactly which player would be there. We didn't know who was going to go 2 at the time. So plenty of discussions about that. Haven't talked to him since Tuesday. I've been in contact with his agent, Aaron Goodwin, Wednesday, today, multiple times going into the draft, just keeping him apprised of what our plans are and, hey, we're going to draft here. So just trying to communicate and be upfront and make sure we're all on the same page.
Joe, is the intention still to build this roster around Damian Lillard and build towards contending on his timeline?
It is. I mean, there's nothing we want more than to, number one, for Dame to retire a Trailblazer, and 2, to put a winner around him, a high-end winner. And I think that's what gets misconstrued about Dame sometimes. Like, for us, it's an incredible problem to have. We have the best player in Trailblazers history that wants to be here and wants to have a winner put around him. And that's our challenge, and that's where we've got to keep doing our thing and find ways to make this team as competitive as possible, as quickly as possible.
Joe, you mentioned that you wanted to see a more veteran-laden team, and you had various assets. You've expended a large portion of those assets. If you're going to build around Damian Lillard, how can you do that at this point without either first-round pick or your second-round pick with only so many salaries left?
I think there's still a lot of movement to be had. We've got to, obviously do a good job in free agency and in the trade market in the next, especially in this activity window, the next 2-3 weeks. We've got to, we've planted a lot of seeds on some deals. A lot of these deals we talked about outside of 3, they weren't necessarily draft related. So sometimes these deals will carry through to, could be tomorrow, could be next week, could be going into free agency or outside of the moratorium. So the goal now is to, we've added some young players. The goal now is to add some veteran players that can continue to, ramp up this team.
Joe, Damian was pretty unequivocal at the end of the year when he said that he didn't have an appetite for more 19-year-olds and guys who were a couple of years away. And I think at one point said if the path was to go young, that wasn't his path. How do you square those comments with what you guys have done up to this point in the offseason? And in drafting Scoot, do you have to make that pick with do you have to accept that a condition of making that pick may be that Dame may not be interested in where you guys are going now?
I think I would say, like, in regards especially to Scoot as a 19-year-old, he's not your normal 19-year-old. This is a special player that is, of course, going to need some time to adjust to the NBA, but he's already been playing professionally for 2 years. He's uber talented. He's not going to take too long to find his stride. So he's a little unique in that regard. I understand what Dame meant by the average 19-year-old. I would argue Scoot is anything but average.
Joe, both Dame and Scoot are guys that have the ball, point guards. Do you think they can play together in the backcourt? And are you kind of telling us that the chances of either Dame or Scoot being traded now are 0?
Well, in this league, there's no such thing as 0, probably, but I would say that my goal is to keep both of them. I already said that, I would love to see Dame retire a Trailblazer. I have 0 desire to trade him. I really hope this works out here. And I think you can tell how excited I am about Scoot Henderson. And he has a chance to be, a special player in this league. So as far as them playing together, I definitely think it's a possibility that, those two would blend well together just from a talent standpoint. It's really, really high end. And I think they can complement each other as well. You know, we'll see how Chauncey decides to use Scoot in year one, but I could see it being, you know, I don't know how he's going to do it, whether he's going to use him as a backup or he's going to use him as a starter or, you know, swing him. I don't know how he's going to do it, but, you know, basketball is about talent. You know, I think sometimes we get caught up too much in position and size. Like for me, I'd rather have the guy like Scoot who's only 6'4", but we measured him, he's 6'2.5" barefoot, so we call it 6'3", 6'3.5". I'd rather have the shorter guy who's a better player than the 6'5" guy, you know? So like in a lot of cases, Scoot, who's so powerful and so long and so dynamic, I think he can hold his ground against some twos when he plays that sometimes, but I mean, they're both natural ones, so it's a very fair question.
Joe, you've talked to Dame more than any of us here. After those conversations, I mean, do you feel like you're in danger of losing him?
No, I don't. I think Dame badly wants to win. And he's probably being more vocal about that than ever, but I don't look at that as a negative. I look at that as he's passionate about this. It matters deeply to him, and it matters deeply to us. And I think the reason you haven't seen major issues from us, or the reason you still see Dame in our gym every day, or still meeting with Chauncey and I constantly, is because he wants this to work. He's bought in. He wants it to work here, and he's challenging us to get it done, which I think is more than fair, and he's earned that.
Bear with me a little bit. So last year with Shaden, he was spectacular, but he clearly made a lot of mistakes, and therefore he wasn't really ready to help the team win. Do you feel like Scoot is a young player who can help a team win at 19, which is extremely unusual? And if he can't, and Dame looks around and doesn't see other veterans that he can win with, and sees that you actually got younger when you, Billups and Dame, ended the season saying you guys were way too young, you blamed yourself for some of that, and you didn't have enough size, and you just added the 6'2" guy. How does any of that add up to Dame coming close to being remotely okay with any of this? And not requesting a trade. And if he does, would you accept that?
Scoot's going to have his up and downs. You know, the rookie year is hard on a player, you know, not just adjusting to the amount of talent up here, but also, you know, figuring out how to, you know, guard all these different players and, you know, run all these different plays and learn your teammates and get through 82 games, which is way more than any of these young guys have ever played. So there's a lot of obstacles to a season. So I'm not at all saying the Scoot season is going to be effortless or, you know, not have, you know, some negative moments to it. But every player's different in their preparation and how they got here. You know, the paths between Scoot and Shaden couldn't be more different. And just in the amount that they had played against high quality competition, and just, you know, the reps that they had gotten at that point. And I think you saw it with Shaden, where like you look at that growth curve from that first game at Sacramento to the last game here in Portland, you know, against Golden State. I mean, tremendous growth in a very short period of time, you know, and these uber talented guys are able to pull that off. You know, a lot of it is, are you physically ready? And, you know, often when you see these long runways or guys take multiple years, often they're just not physically there yet. You know, they got to get stronger. They got to grow into their bodies. They've got to put on weight, you know. With Scoot and Shaden, they're a little unique that way because they're so strong and ready to go already. Now it's just the mental part. How fast can that catch up?
Joe, beyond the whether Dame and Scoot can play together in the long term, you've now got four guys in Dame, Ant, Scoot, and Shaden who are essentially ones and twos, even if Shaden can swing up. There's 96 minutes between the two. How can you have those four guys when Dame and Ant are taking up 70 minutes a night in those two spots? Shaden's likely taking up 20. You're looking at 6 minutes a night in development for a number 3 pick. How does the value scale for that work for you if you go into the season with all four?
I think the first thing you said is, yeah, Shaden can swing a little, which helps, but there's naturally 12 minutes right behind Dame where if Ant doesn't swing to the one as often, so you get that. It's still figuring it out, you know, like a really important thing in a draft, and you know, we hear it all the time and probably here in Portland more than anywhere, draft for talent, not need. It's critical. And I just wasn't going to be moved at all by need, especially drafting that high. I was drafting the best player possible, and then we're going to figure it out.
Joe, at the trade deadline, I asked you about, you know, this fan base has been waiting and waiting for some sort of big move. And once again tonight, you know, yes, you draft number 3, but a lot of people were hoping for a trade. What do you have to say to this fan base again that is once again probably being preached patience?
I would say we made the biggest move possible by drafting Scoot Henderson, that he's going to be better than any player that would maybe be perceived as that big move. And then you start factoring in the other things that matter in this league, the salary cap, you know, him on a rookie scale. That allows us to build a lot more depth than we would have been able to otherwise.
Joe, with all of these things kind of at play, what you just said about draft picks and rookie scale contracts being so valuable with the new CBA, but then you also saying that you want to put more impact veterans around Dame. Are you more motivated or, you know, feel any kind of sense of urgency now to, you know, use future draft capital in order to make some moves to kind of bring some of those guys in if the goal is still to pull around Dame?
Yes, I do. Good question. And that's where there's other stuff to do here. You know, I feel like we've done a good job of putting ourselves in a good position to, you know, make these moves and start to get aggressive and pushing, you know, I say this quite a bit, push our chips in. You know, we've got good picks, we've got good players, we've got a lot of talent in this building, and now we've just got to, you know, fine tune it and get it balanced and get it ready to go.